Good evening, good evening. Welcome to the stream. Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. It's hot, as you can probably guess. Yeah, Boy Parts was published in 2020 and it will be 5 years old in 11 days, I believe. So it's a pretty new novel in that regard. Maybe even the newest I've covered so far, if I think about it. I'm not sure exactly, but whatever. Welcome to GC's book club. If any of you have any thoughts on the book that you'd like to share, please do. You know, I'm all three of you having a look at this. I'll give you more time to read it and I get less of an audience, but whatever. I am late today, so yeah, I can accept that maybe a few more will roll in as we go. But yeah, it tells a story, Boy Parts that is, of Arena Sturgis, who is a woman in her late 20s. I think she's approaching 30. She works in a bar, kind of, and she's also a photographer who likes to take pictures of less conventionally attractive men than you would normally gather. So I'll give a quick summary of it. Yeah, when I say less conventionally attractive, I mean most of the time they are boyish looking, or just boyish in general, because they're about 18. But yeah, I'll get onto what I actually thought of this particular premise, if you know what I mean, because what I'm saying here I think is very much the surface level of what goes on in the novel. And yeah, I'll let you know what I really thought once we get past this bit. And so yeah, this is a kind of a day-to-day kind of thing. We begin with her going to work. She's late because she got wrecked the night before. This seems to be a usual type of occurrence, and then some woman comes into the bar whilst there's this other group of kind of twatty guys there, and demands to speak to her because of this, that and the other. But then when it gets down to it, it's because she's taken pictures of some 16-year-old kid who used his brother's passport to claim that he's old enough to do this type of photography, which I'll get onto in a bit. And yeah, this woman, who is the mother of this kid, is fuming with her and ends up socking her one. And that gives Arena an excuse to not only leave work that day, but to claim compensation for getting assaulted and all this type of stuff. And is also a little bit of a convenient plot line, because we don't really revisit this bar. It kind of comes up in conversation here and there again, and is utilised as a reason for her mother to be pissed off with her when she quits the job. But aside from that, it didn't really serve much other purpose, I didn't think. But then we go from there and we get more into Arena's kind of life. She's a very sassy type of individual. She says what she thinks, or claims to. She has an attitude toward everything, pretty much. She's very misanthropic, narcissistic, egotistical, self-centered, loves herself, or at least the idea of herself, maybe more than other things. And according to her own words, she's pretty hot shit and all this type of thing. And wouldn't you know it, I mean, whilst her photography career doesn't seem to be going anywhere in particular, it just so happens that she has been picked out to do some sort of private viewing, and it's for a relatively well-known exhibit, you know, location or whatever. And from there we just get more and more into like her day-to-day kind of existence. So what she usually does when she wants to photograph somebody is just approach them on the bus or whatever and ask them to come to her studio, which is basically a garage that she's converted, and proceeds to take, you know, certain pictures. I'm avoiding talking about what type of pictures because I'll get to that. And then obviously about halfway through the novel, after we've met her friends, or one friend who's completely obsessed with her, and due to her being bi, I would say, I mean she claims to be bi, but it seems to me that she's a straight woman who claims to be, who might date a woman for convenience, but I don't know whether there's anything more to it than that. Her other friend is trans. Fine. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the questions I have of the novel will kind of address that, I'm sure, or at least like put another question on it, because some of the elements of this book felt like it was just there because it fit in very nicely with the current zeitgeist that we live in, and kind of little else. I didn't really see much other reason for it to be there, but fine. I mean, these people live everyday existences just like we do, so it's just like, yeah, I don't have an issue with that. It's just relevancy is still a question there. I don't really see what that really gave the novel, apart from enriching Irina's characterization a bit more. You kind of got to know a bit about her day-to-day kind of existence and what her personality is like, the types of people that she has hanging out with her. Mother, I actually thought her mother was probably the other most realised character in a lot of ways, mainly because of her vernacular and the kind of way they would speak to one another. I could properly envision that. We get up to the halfway point and it becomes pretty evident that after a while Irina's assertions of the world and of herself are blown up to a certain extent. She's megalomaniacal to the point where it all starts to capitulate, actually, and we start to then realise that the reason she's self-destructive or massively defensive or lies to people or whatever is because she's dealing with something that happened in the past, and it only gets revealed halfway through is that she actually killed some runaway 16-year-old boy, and this part of it would just I don't know what I thought about this reveal, if I'm honest, because whilst it was obvious that it was kind of leading to something like that, it all felt very skimmed over once it actually got to it. And really, and it took 200 pages to kind of get there. We follow her on her day-to-day routine. She's got this thing or at least she's got her eye on this guy Eddie from Tesco. She's like thinking about photographing him or getting involved with him in some way or another. There's obviously her friends. They go out for a club night in one bit, which is a chapter that went on for way too long, I thought, but was kind of revealing of the types of parties or shenanigans that they get up to and the amount of drugs they take. And she's also invited to her party by a guy who is interested in her. There's a kind of sloppy attempted rape that he puts her through, but he can't go through with it because he can't get it up and all this. So it's all got this very kind of debauched, somewhat seedy, that kind of thing going on. It just feels a bit, it's very transgressive, I would say, overall. For the most part, as a character, I actually enjoyed reading her, in a sense. Like, I found her to be quite amusing, totally deluded, but at the same time there was a kind of biting edge to her that was entertaining, and it was enthralling enough up until the point where it reveals when she kills this kid or teenager and then just hops to the local shop to buy a cleaver, hacks him up, and has dotted him around parts of the city or whatever, and then after that, that's when everything starts to show us a bit more. We kind of realize that at the beginning she talks about herself as if she's some kind of bombshell and all this stuff. Like, one minute she's like super skinny and can fit into anything, then she's got an hourglass body, then it's like she rates her photography, but then you start to realise that she doesn't really know anything about photography from what I can gather. Like, it's very basic kind of knowledge about like the white balance or the overexposure or whatever. And it's just, these are kind of like layman terms. Like, no one would use this if they're a person who's genuinely interested in, you know, the medium of photography. So it started to become a bit like, I don't actually trust what she's saying here that much. And the more I kind of delved into that, the more I started to think she claims she's a photographer, but really she's a glorified pornographer, basically. Like, the types of pictures she takes are of boys posing like girls, often half naked or wearing gimp masks, that type of thing. So it's got a very transgressive type nature. And it borders on more than even soft porn, I would say. And I think her journey throughout it felt a lot like, it reminded me of the Britney Spears thing when she went crazy and shaved her head. I think what's kind of happening, obviously the guilt element of what she's done by committing murder and all this kind of stuff has its own influence as well, but I almost felt like it's the fraudulent side of her. Like, I think she's almost feeling an imposter syndrome because she is starting to succeed, and yet she's kind of mediocre, you know, overall. She is the epitome of it, like in American Beauty with Mina Savari's character. It's just like, she wants to be the hot shit and she tries to see herself as the hot shit, and she gasses herself up as if she is this thing. You know, apparently every guy is always looking at her tits and all this type of stuff. And it's like, yeah, but that's probably because you got them pushed up to the moon at any God-given moment and you're constantly dressing like a slut. So it's a bit like, you know, what do you really expect kind of thing. And she's got this, basically she's got, the whole novel is like a power struggle. Irina with herself, Irina with other people, her friends especially, Irina with her clients. Like, it's all got this element of like, she wants to be the dominant one, but because she is living with the truth of what she's done, it's all starting to fall, you know, apart by the seams in her head mentally. The problem with the novel, I found, really is once the reveal is brought to our attention, I didn't think her psychological meltdown was done particularly well. I just think it was okay, but for me, at the midway point, the novel was decent, but there was that back of my head kind of thing going, where is this going? Is it just going to be some, you know, descent into madness type thing? And it basically is, kind of thing, but it's done in a way where she does kind of keep her shit together, but at the same time, at the same time, she only really manages to do so because she's like taking drugs or distracting herself with a one night stand, and then even in that one night stand she starts getting a bit stabby, you know, she's very, or choky. She's basically like treats sex as some sort of, I don't know, she's testing the boundaries of her own violence more than anything, or what she can inflict upon a person, men especially. And a lot of the time the sex scenes, which there aren't many of, are very not really about the sex, if you know what I mean. It's like her attitude toward it is very blasé, but she is interested, or at least she lets her demonic side kind of take over her, and then her viewpoint on the world and all of this kind of stuff starts to blur a lot more, because she isn't sure if she really did the thing that she thought she did, or saw what she thought she saw, all that kind of stuff. And then it all kind of leads up, she's in the middle of this, she's kind of like seeing this Eddie from Tesco and getting him to pose for her. He becomes besotted, infatuated with We don't really know why. Probably just because she's a bitch, and there is something enticing about those types of women, at least if they're good looking. But the more I started to pick it apart, the more I kind of thought, of course she's going to think she's hot shit, because all the guys she's picking to do photography, who she does fool around with, like a few of them here and there, they think that she wants more than just to take their photograph. And of course they're assuming and probably gassing her up quite a lot in terms of like, oh my god, you're like a skinny Marilyn Monroe and all this type of stuff, and they're really into it. But she's made up like a baby doll kind of thing. So it's a bit like, yeah, obviously these guys are gonna, you know, boost your ego and all this kind of thing. But really, I wouldn't be surprised if she was basically, you know, a mid girl who's just had her ego totally blown out of whack. And it is, after a while, a little bit difficult to really sympathise with her, but I don't think that's the point of the novel. The ending is crap. I thought it really bottled the ending, because I remember when it had like 40 pages to go, and I just thought, I don't really know how she's going to tie this up, because it doesn't really seem to be going anywhere. We wait most of the novel to get to this big exhibition, and the only thing that really happens there is she's there with another artist, and he's like this entitled white guy who's privileged and all this, by her assertion. But then she takes him up on an offer, and then ends up in his hotel, or he ends up in her hotel room. And then there's a bit of weird kind of, I think she takes a letter opener and starts like getting a bit stabby with him again, or this is with a new one. But he's also got this uncle who has just bought all of her work when the nephew kind of flipped out because he didn't realise he was having to share the space, and that Irina got the majority of it as well. So as a kind of way to keep the peace, he's like bought everything she brought with her, so she makes like 15k out of it without even having to try at all. And this uncle wants to take her for sushi, and it's like, this is basically the end. Like, and then inside, when they're having this date and eating sashimi and all this kind of stuff and drinking ridiculous cocktails, and she just kind of has a blip moment where she basically glasses him and ends up, you know, walking out of the restaurant. And then she's not sure that if she did it or not, because she's just losing the plot basically, and ends up in a park, but like probably I think like she did before when she picked up the younger guy, and she starts talking to some random tramp, starts going on about the meaninglessness of life and all this kind of stuff, and then walks into a pond, thinks she sees a bag with, you know, body parts in it, and then that's it. It's like done. I don't know, I just didn't think it, for one thing, I didn't think the philosophizing on the meaninglessness of it all wasn't really earned. I didn't really think that I didn't expect that in a sense, but it felt a bit contrived, as did the visions that she has. This isn't necessarily a bad thing to use, because she often sees the guy with a shard of glass in his eye from the first time or maybe even the only time she actually killed someone. But then that's what she starts seeing in other people quite a lot. So there's this whole thing about vision and somewhat, you know, blindness, or at least kind of thing. And it's just, I've seen this throughout literature so fucking often, from Dante to Story of the Eye to fucking Edgar Allan Poe, Telltale Heart, House of Leaves. It's like there's just this Oedipus Rex, like there's this, it's just wrought throughout literature, which is an interesting thing to even discuss at some point. Like, why is this? Is it just because they're paying homage to this type of thing, or is there some odd overlap with writing and not realizing that it kind of is portraying everything that you don't normally see in your day-to-day life about yourself. So there's this sense of like you don't even really know who you are, therefore, like with Oedipus Rex, it's like you want to stab yourself in the eyes because you're aware that you can't see what's right in front of you anyway, type of thing. That's an interesting, and I'm sure there's probably books written about it anyway, because it is something that seems to pop up a lot, you know. I mean, there's a book, Blindness, you know, by Saramago, which is exactly that. Like, everyone in that goes blind, and it's all about how they deal with the world and all that kind of stuff. But that one's like, yeah, that's more allegorical, I suppose. But yeah, when it comes to Irina, she's basically a man with a vagina. That's about it in terms of like originality. I don't really have an issue with that, but I just don't think it actually offers that much more than exactly that. Like, it's a bit like, okay, she's just like a edgy, in your face, somewhat braggadocious, you know, sassy individual who, yeah, basically takes advantage of anything she can, and, you know, it's this very take what you can get kind of element. I found some of the insights that she has to be, I don't know whether they were intended to be hilarious in their hypocrisy, because she goes, you know, she mentions stuff about white privilege and that, and you kind of think, you're white. Like, okay, you mean just men. But then it's like, the men she's moaning about are like trust fund babies, and yet she gets half her rent paid by daddy. So it's a bit like, I think you live in a pretty privileged position, if I'm honest. And not only is her artwork shit, it's there's a pervert benefactor, Great Expectations style, who's just like, oh my darling, what wonderful like eccentric, you know, extravagant beauties do you have for me today? And at some point she ends up sending the pictures of the kid she killed, which is basically snuff, and he drops 30 grand in her lap. And we never see this character. We don't really know who they are. It's a very lazy plot device, if I'm honest. I didn't hate it, because when you look at today, I mean, there's Twitch streamers who've been given that in donations when, you know, what are they doing? Just sitting there with their tits out. What's Arena doing most of the time? Exactly that. So it's I mean, admittedly, he's more in it for this, yeah, BDSM type art, which subverts the normal standard, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think it subverts it that much, if I'm honest. It's like, you know, different strokes for different folks and all that. There's plenty of women who like being more dominant, and like, you know, sissification and all that kind of stuff. It's maybe it's more common these days, but I think there's always been guys who are into that kind of stuff, you know. What's the adage? It's like, there's nothing better than a beautiful woman, or the only thing better than a beautiful woman is an angry beautiful woman. And I would go an extension of that. The only thing better than an angry beautiful woman is an angry beautiful woman covered in blood. Think on it. It's true. And yeah, I don't know whether it was supposed to be part of the comedy, but it's so, to me, the fact that it would be lent on as being feminist or whatever is actually somewhat ironic, because the things it points out actually support views of the manosphere a lot more. Irina is a shit photographer. She doesn't know jack shit about it. She doesn't even seem to have passion for it either. And yet she can thrive and be successful, get exhibitions. She can like basically do whatever she wants and get paid for it. And you just think she doesn't, and I think part of her capitulation is to do with the fact that she knows she is a fraud. She doesn't really have much skill. She's just taking advantage of a certain niche which a lot of perverted homosexual eccentrics will pay a lot of money to get more material of. So essentially she is a pornographer who pretends to herself that she's got some sort of artistic integrity, when really she's just as bad as everyone else she claims has no talent, and if not slightly worse, because everyone around her she kind of exploits in one way or another, whether it's her best friend Flo, who she has this thing with. Not sure what that was supposed to add to the story either. It's just literally like everyone wants to fuck me kind of thing, and it's like, well, it seems like you would just fuck anyone, because whenever you have sex with somebody, it's I don't think this is a phrase, but it's like she's an asexual. Everyone she sleeps with is just a reflection of her own narcissism. So she likes it when somebody completely adores her, worships her, and makes her feel all powerful and mighty, because that's all she cares about in her day-to-day existence. These elements of the novel I actually thought were quite interesting. The comparisons to American Psycho are insulting. Like, no, it's nothing. It's nowhere near American Psycho. Fuck off. If anything, it has more in common with something like Crime and Punishment, because and yeah, don't get me wrong on there, they're not comparable, but her mental state as it goes on is definitely much more Raskolnikov than it is Patrick Bateman. But a lot of these things feel very surface level and almost lazy, I would say, in terms of like when she starts having visions and stuff, and when she kills the boy, there's a cat, Fritz I think his name is, and it was her best friend Flo's cat, and she just kills it. Like, why not just kill it? And then that serves as like when she hears the bell, it's almost like, oh, this is another moment where she's hallucinating or whatever. But it's just in these very quippy sentences where it's like, oh, I turned and the boy had a shard of glass in his eye, and then he didn't. And then we move on, and it's just like, this is, put a bit of fucking effort in. Like, this is supposed to be your mental derangement setting in, you know. And so yeah, I thought the second half of the novel, whilst it did move the plot, it didn't do it particularly well. The main thing I enjoyed of the novel was Irina, even though you're clearly not supposed to like her. She's a cunt, basically, like an out and out one as well. But she is funny. I do think I liked her observations. I liked her misanthropy. I did think she had the odd quippy kind of one-liner where she would just like, yeah, she'd drop a few mic drop moments, I guess, where she'd just be like, yeah, whatever, like that fucking baguette of a lad from Call Me By Your Name or whatever, and yeah, stuff like that, where it's just quite amusing. But aside from that, there were issues with the plotting big time, because the novel's way too long. It should have been a novella. I felt it should have been 200 pages. Like, it could have achieved what it wanted to a lot quicker, and it almost felt like it was just making us wait until a certain point, and then that's when her brain starts to go defunct. And it's like, well, in fairness, I suppose her brain is already struggling because of the fact that she parties all the time, gets wasted, and all of this kind of stuff. Well, for the lols, it's a bit of a cunty thing to do, but let me just. So what I think Eliza Clark is Britain's answer to Sophie Thatcher. Seriously, this is like weird. It's like she ate Sophie Thatcher, I think. No? But yeah, I don't think the author was describing herself, although there is a lot in terms of like her own history. It definitely uses some elements of a real life experience and all this type of stuff, and it wouldn't surprise me if she did have a slight ego, like a kind of like, you know, when a woman goes on Tinder and she gets 4,000 likes in a couple of days, and then she suddenly thinks she's prime fucking Audrey Hepburn or whatever, and it's just like yeah, no. But in fairness to Eliza Clark, I actually think she was taking the piss out of that. Like there were parts of me that can kind of give the benefit of the doubt when I'm feeling generous. The other issues is like it added in this stuff about like her being bi or the trans guy, and I just kept thinking like, it's fine to have that in there obviously, but what's the fucking relevancy? I don't really, is this literally like, that is so cynical if it is just for the pure fact that that is a big thing to kind of throw in, because there's no relevancy in it. The only part I could see a potential bit of crossover was in the fact that the types of boys that she tries to, you know, get to pose for her are kind of somewhat androgynous more often than not, and the types of women that she's interested in all happen to look pretty similar. So there is a sort of crossover, and there is a transgenderism kind of in that. But yeah, for me that wasn't really enough, and in a way I actually kind of view it as being more transphobic than pro, in a sense, because if it is just utilizing it because it's, you know, currently popular, that's so fucking cynical. It's like that's why I hated My Dark Vanessa, because that was a poor book that jumped on the Me Too bandwagon when it came around. The author said this as well, like, oh, it was in, you know, my desk drawer for quite a while, and then this whole thing happened, and then she starts adding like more stuff about that, and that's not literature, that's pseudo journalism in a sense. But yeah, again, I think that's some of the issue with these modern books, is they just jump on zeitgeisty, fashionable subjects just because their ways of labeling. Like, I actually felt like the only reason it had that in there was so it could label itself LBGT, and that's it, and so it could just have it in there, and that can bring about more of an audience, because it's not saying anything about it in terms of like their experience or whatever. This is very much a woman with, or a man with a vagina and a fine set of titties, according to her, who just is basically having a mental breakdown, pretty much. Not just because I think she's fraudulent in terms of like how she's managing to fool the world that she's, you know, a decent photographer and artist and stuff, because she's not. She's like, but it's funny when, you know, how deluded she is about it. But there was some people, at least I saw on Reddit, going on about a bit when she's about 16, 17, she starts dating a much older man, I think, who used to be or was even her professor and all this kind of stuff. And they were kind of going, oh, it's because she's dealing with the trauma of being groomed at this age and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, bollocks. Like, I just don't see that at all. Yes, there might be some hang-ups from it. There might be a bit of luggage, you know, baggage. Because, you know, being that age, you're vulnerable and you're naive and all of that kind of stuff. But it doesn't wash with me, to be honest. Any woman of 16, 17 is gonna know enough and gonna have her own autonomy. I actually have very little sympathy for it. It's like, you knew what you were getting into, so I don't have sympathy for it, really. And I felt like it was an odd thing to kind of throw in there as like, this is her dealing with her trauma. It's like, she's killed someone, like she's literally killed someone, and you're trying to still pin it on, you know, her, or when she was groomed kind of thing. It's like, no, she was 17, she was making her own choices. admittedly, there were still dumb choices, as we are all wont to make at that age. But still, she knew what she was getting into. So I didn't really... I mean, I had more sympathy for her, thinking that her upbringing must have been difficult because her mum is a total twat. Reminded me of my own mum a little bit, actually, because, or at least in a weird way, both my mum and dad, because when Irina quits her job at the bar, the mum stops talking to her because she doesn't see her photography thing as a serious thing and all that kind of cliched stuff. But her mum's a model kind of narcissist as well, so she was the one who groomed her, if you want to use that kind of language. She created the person she became, and really I just saw it was much more about guilt, I suppose. I mean, I can give some credit to the notion that she does have some hang-ups about her relationship history and stuff. Like, who doesn't? Like, you know, fair enough. But the fact that there's literally a section saying she chopped up a fucking body, which I do still question, because I'm not sure how easy that would be for a woman of her stature. But whatever, I can go along with that. And then, yeah, there are other moments where she does seem to have, you know, blips of self-awareness where she's like, I'm a woman, I am more vulnerable, it's just nature kind of thing. Of course I am, it's just how it is kind of thing. But it's almost like she just can't accept this, because the novel's kind of a power struggle, but it's woman versus herself kind of thing. But it's also like the things where it adds in the murder, it's not really about her being a sort of killer, although it kind of is in places. It's just a bit messy in terms of like what it was trying to add in there, and I thought the ending just completely bottled it. Because I actually, if it was me, I think what would have been far more interesting, instead of having this American Psycho rip-off shit, would have been if actually Irina deliberately put herself in a very precarious position with a gentleman, or maybe even a group of gentlemen, who were likely going to do some very nasty things to her. Whether we see this or it's accounted, whatever, I don't know. But I think it would have been really interesting to reverse the relevancy of that, because what would normally be seen as like graphic violence and horror and all that kind of stuff would, in Irina's eyes, might even be seen as atonement, essentially, for her own guilt. Like, in a weird way, I think I could imagine her joyfully accepting an ass whooping or a gang rape or something, because it's like she fucking deserves it, basically. Like, and that's what it kind of is hinting at in terms of her mental capitulation. It's like she can't deal with what she's done. So it could have been a really interesting reversal of that kind of redemption arc, where what we're reading is horrific, but how she's feeling about it is actually a catharsis kind of thing. That would have been way more interesting to me, and I actually thought the novel might have the balls to do something along that ilk, but nah, it just did that typical thing where it just kind of just ends, just like runs out of steam, does something a bit weird where she just walks into the river. Oh yeah, it's like baptism or some bullshit, and then it's like, that's it. Oh, she's still seeing the bodies. She still hasn't really come to terms with what she's done. She has no intention of turning herself in or anything like that. And then it even adds that question of like, oh, maybe I didn't do it. But a few people I saw reviewing it were pissed off with that element. I didn't really give that too much thought. It's like, no, she did what she did. There's no question that, yeah, she might just be losing her mind or whatever. It felt very obvious to me that, yeah, the reason she said that is because she got away with what she's done. This is like the shadow side, if you want to go Union about it or whatever. But it's that whole thing of like, she's got away with it, but at the same time her own conscience is now her punisher kind of thing. And that's the thing. That's why I thought it was much more C&P than American Psycho, because it's like, but not in any like deep way. It's still surface level stuff. And yeah, just the other thing with how the bar is the thing that starts off the whole novel, and it's not bad because we get to know her day to day, like what her normal job is, what she does for a living when she's like outed for being a bit of a pedo essentially. But yeah, we know that she takes rather taboo pictures and all that kind of stuff, so we do accomplish quite a lot in the first few pages. But at the same time, we never go back to this bar. It doesn't really become relevant, and it's only to me it felt like a convenient way of going like, okay, now we'll get her away from the bar because this woman's attacked her. That was all fine, I suppose, but then at the point where it seems like she needs to go back, she ends up just going on a bit of a weird one and sending the snuff pictures to the weird benefactor guy, and he drops 30k on her lap, and it's like, okay, now we don't have to worry about the employment situation at all. It just felt a little bit convenient to me. It was just a bit like, okay. And then that led to other scenes being in there to be just like, okay, is this just, what are we, like, she goes and picks up this guy at a bar at one point. She just decides to go. I think this is after she has like an intimate kind of moment with this Eddie guy, and then she's like immediately does a kind of modern woman type of thing, and she dolls herself up and goes to some bar and picks up the first guy who shows interest, and then when they start fucking, she seems almost angry when she comes, and then which was another thing that was kind of interesting. I thought if it actually delved into her relationship to sex, it would have been an intriguing element, because we might have actually seen a bit more of a human out of her. But yeah, overall I think the novel was overhyped. It's all right. Like, I'm not gonna say, you know, it's terrible or anything, but I find with the last couple of books especially, but just quite a lot in terms of like modern female fiction in general. This isn't so much the case with like a Tessa Mossfair, because I do think she can have a bit of flair with her writing, but I just feel a bit of a lack of a love of language, if this makes sense. It's like, it almost feels like it's a chore to do it, so it just chops down parts and makes it very matter of fact a lot of the time, and just, I don't feel a passion for the craft of writing that much. It almost feels like I'm reading the kind of begrudging element of like, oh, this is work, this is a job, I'm a writer, this is what I'm doing. And obviously it's not saying that literally, it's just more, you kind of sense it in the text, and it's just like, whenever I read something like Poe or whatever, it's like I can feel the kind of admiration and worship for language in it, because it's like the way the, you know, text or prose just kind of bleeds into you, kind of thing, if you know what I mean. It's just that it just lacks a bit of flair, lacks a bit of je ne sais quoi. Like, it's just like, where's the fucking passion? It's like, I don't mind if you've got all these kind of gritty, transgressive type characters. It just feels like, it almost feels like I'm reading the same book a lot of the time, whether it's The Vegetarian, Eileen, Wetlands. Like, it just, I don't know. I mean, there are moments here and there where it feels like, oh yeah, that was quite a good line. It's just, but it's just, yeah, I'm not just, it doesn't feel like the raison d'etre to the author, if you know what I mean. And that's the thing that I actually find it a concerning element of it. It's almost like, due to like this anti, you know, past white male who, let's be honest, wrote the same types of books much better. Like, these novels have been done. This is just the female version, and they're not as good because the female experience doesn't really match what a man's is. Irene is bitching and moaning, and yet she gets fucking accolades and acclaim and money, and she gets to live the life. A male experience is like incomparable. Like, totally different type of world. Even in American Psycho, he has to fucking graft and grind to get into the Wall Street position. So it's all, whereas really, Irina essentially fails her course, gets out of it eventually, but at this point she's, killing people and getting fucked on the side kind of thing. It's like her privilege is, it's in a different world basically. And I suppose really, like, I'd be fine with that. I kind of just want, like, if it is supposed to be about the female experience, give me something new. Like, I want something I haven't seen before. I don't know how to, like, articulate this, but I don't actually feel I'm reading a woman's experience. I got it a little bit with Wetlands, but that was only because she was so graphic about her body, about taking a shit, for example, or whatever. That was like, okay, that's something different. But with this, I just thought all the time it's just, she's just a woman without a penis, or a man with a vagina kind of thing. She's just got this attitude that's just very much a guy's one. The way she treats sex is just all about just these one night experiences, stuff like that. Seems to actually hate sex, which it would have been much more interesting to dive into as well, because it would have been like, well, because your relationship to it is all about power and getting one over on people and not committing to anything because you're your own fucking boss and all this type of thing. Would have been way more interesting. But cheers. But yeah, that's just getting a bit fucking dark in here, isn't it? If there is that's alright, I guess. Other novels out there, but I just got a feeling like if we were to carry on reading, like, the types of books that get recommended alongside this, I reckon they all feel the same. It's almost as if they've all got the same editor, and to me it doesn't really point out, it's like there's no wonder there's like no rock and roll kind of literary figures anymore, because if I'm completely honest, these books are fine, but they're nothing special. Like, there's no prose in it or philosophical musings or dilemmas that it goes into that I'm just like, wow, I don't know how they came up with this or whatever. It feels like I'm reading a third draft a lot of the time, where it's like, it's not bad, it's quite interesting in its own right, but like Eliza Clark mentioned, this was originally like a short or elongated short story, and it's like, you can tell because you've just stretched it out without really adding that much and not really tying up many loose ends. It's like, if you're going to do a descent into madness, like, you can at least have some fun with it. I want to see you fucking, I don't know, going proper serial killer at least, or I don't know how else, however else you might want to do it. But I just felt like the supposed struggles of her as a character were all of her own making. There was nothing really getting in her way apart from herself, which is fine, but you got to punish your character a bit more than that. I should have taken my nipples, that's the point. But yeah, overall it's alright. I'd give it 2 stars. It's and I almost feel a little bit bad for that, because I gave Wetlands 3, but Wetlands, in fairness to it, actually knew when to end and knew its limitations, and it did have a better ending. At least it had one which somewhat explained why Helen, was her name? I think her name was Helen, was the way that she was, and I actually felt that a lot more palpably. Whereas with this, it's like, I don't really feel like I've got to know what the true psychological condition Irina has, aside from being a blatant narcissist and somewhat bipolar and all this kind of like buzzword type thing, but it's just you're not really getting anything else apart from that, and it's just like, well, you still murdered a, you know, some poor boy basically, and like, oh, what am I supposed to feel sympathy for you because you're now struggling with the guilt? I don't think that's what the novel was asking you to do, but it's almost like I don't really think the novel knows what else it wants to say in that regard, which is a shame, because 1 star means it's shit. 2 stars, it means, to me, it's all right. I mean, I know what you mean. It's a bit tricky, but for me, 3 stars is obviously over half, so that's me saying it's all like decent in a sense. Which for me, there are only elements of this that were decent. Other parts, like I said before, like without the kind of vivacity of the prose, all it really is quite a well structured piece, and there are instances and scenes in it that are pretty decent, but the tying up of it all, it's not really there, and there's a lot of like loose ends at the end of it, because I look back at it and I just think, okay, so what did Flo bring to the table here? Just the woman who was obsessed with Irina, just the way she likes it. Okay, so it's just further characterization for Irina. Okay, fine. What did Finch provide? Nothing. He's just trans. What did the random guy she slept with at the bar represent? What an easy slut Irina is. Again, it's just like all it really ever did was feed back to Irina. You know, there wasn't any other instances where it is that. The other character I thought was kind of well realised was one called Michael, who is the boyfriend of Flo, and he basically puts her in a place one time and is just like, fuck off basically, because you're a piece of shit. So he's like the only one who actually sees through Irina, and obviously she doesn't like him for that, and yada yada. And then Eddie from Tesco, probably the most sympathetic character I'd say overall, because you just realise that he's just a young guy and he gets a bit besotted with her because he's not, you know, he kind of, I mean, really by today's standards I'm sure he would be labelled an incel, you know, but yeah, obviously he becomes a bit overly keen on her and tries to do all this romantic stuff when really she shows no interest in that kind of thing whatsoever, so it comes a bit tragic. But again, it just all comes back to this notion of it just feeds Irina's character and little else, and really the only thing it feeds into is her very overblown view of herself overall. Maybe that was the point. You could make that point in 200 pages instead of 4, so that's why I'd say it fumbled, because it, you know, the biggest sin of say any film, once you get past that hour and a half point, there needs to be a good fucking reason you're doing that, you know. And it's the same with a novel. Like, it's know what your novel is. Don't just stretch it out just because, oh well, now we're in the second half, I can start to reveal these, you know, other visions she's having and stuff. It's like, no, that's been done a million times before. Like, and unless you're going to take us somewhere else with it, you know. Which gross out aspect are you talking about in particular? To be honest, a lot of that stuff kind of just it's like water off a duck's back to me these days. I don't really get. I think a lot of the time when it comes to like shock value stuff, the main way to make it really shocking is to build up to it. You don't just lay it out on the table, because if you lay it out on the table, you've already set the bar. So with anything, you need to go really extreme to actually make it shocking, you know. And that's a type of manipulation, of course, but that if that's what you want to inject into your reader, having bits where, like the whole attempted rape thing, for a second, it was a bit like, this is a bit uncomfortable, but at the same time, Irina's attitude towards everything is so blasé, and as if like she can just accept anything, and you know, is almost not. She is just as shocked as you are as the reader, because it's just a bit like, well, she doesn't seem particularly bothered. I mean, she gets shit-faced all the time, and if she is such a fitty as she makes out, plus with the kind of fuck off attitude that she's got, I mean, obviously it's going to invite some pretty lewd behaviour. So for me, I mean, I mean, and people go on about it being really transgressive and stuff. I thought, this is like kids' transgression, really. I mean, it's not. It's there's elements, but it's you know, the fact that we skip over the whole murder thing gets you know, that's the most disappointing element. I thought she was going to go into detail, but then it just carries on with other characters who she just gets a bit frisky with, you know. She's like choky, stabby, but she never really does anything too gratuitous, I don't think. Oh, referring to wetlands. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it had the shock value element to it because it kind of subverted the standard, you know. And it was, I mean, you don't read or even hear about often, you know, women who actually are comfortable with their bodies and do these weird like little things by, you know, touching their vagina just to put the scent on their neck and all that kind of stuff. And that was just an intriguing thing to add. Of course, it's titillating for a male ear, but at the same time, it's the reverse of, you know, what the normal expectation is. I've never actually read any Matt Shaw, but I would possibly do so at some point. I'm yapping about boy parts, which is on the fucking thumbnail, motherfucker. But yeah, there was another element I wanted to get into. Let me see if I can. Yeah, because it was originally published by okay, there we go. Yeah, Influx Press. And this is an indie publisher, so if anyone who's interested in just taking note, I mean, I find it intriguing because it was originally published through this publisher, but then it was taken by Faber and Faber, which is a fucking huge one. So that is, I don't know, I think that's quite intriguing, because it does seem to me these days especially that whenever a book does even reasonably well, it will soon get snapped up. So really there's this hierarchical system within the publishing world where, let's say, self-publishing is at the bottom, then you've got above that maybe Vanity Press, if that even exists anymore, because I don't see how that's still going. But then obviously indie presses are essentially, they're not, I wouldn't say they're the same as self-publishing, but there are a number of them out there who might as well be, because they're such a small group that they're basically just taking a few manuscripts sent to them and then publishing it on Amazon, you know. And, you know, that's fine if the intent is to get more work out there. But yeah, obviously, and then you probably have like kind of decent like publisher. I suppose it wouldn't be quite indie, but it's not quite mainstream. And then obviously the big five. So any book that does well, Conspiracy Against the Human Race was this. It was published under like quite a small firm, and then Penguin took it up after it became like a cult status type of book. And it's the same with Boy Parts. It's the same with some self-published pieces like 50 Shades of Grey and the fucking Martian and things like that. So to me, what it is if you can get decent clout from a relatively small press, the big publisher will come in to steal it and try to make a profit out of it. It's a very mercenary type of business, basically. Best of luck to anyone who fucking gets that far, because it's difficult, But I think I'm going to try and take a bit more note of like when it was originally published, who published it, whether then it was then taken on by another publisher, all that kind of stuff. Just to, in all honesty, I'm doing it for myself because I'm kind of trying to keep a lookout for potential. Like, because I read this and I think, I'm sorry, I don't know whether story-wise my stuff is better, but prose-wise, it's better. So, you got to have some confidence in yourself. I genuinely don't see, from Boy Parts to Wetlands to Eileen or whatever, I don't look at it and go, oh my god, the writing in this, why am I even trying? That type of thing. I won't say my stuff is better in that regard, but I do think my panache with words is just, it's got a little bit more effervescence, a bit more sprinkled in. Like there's I don't know, maybe I'm fucking totally deluded, much like Arena Sturgis is, and I'm actually a useless cunt, but yeah, it just feels to me like I don't even know what I'm waffling on about now, but I was actually quite taken with some of the book covers of this publisher are really fucking nice. So this one for Tender I think is pretty cool. Supplication. I don't know. It looks like they published some interesting things. I really like this short stories. This one for Polluted Sex looks quite cool. I don't know. It looks like an interesting press. So I might end up sending something to them at some point. I don't know. But yeah, to get a bit more info on them, I think they're just a London-based one. Yeah. Committed to publishing, formed in 2012, so pretty young still, but it's been going a while. Might be worth keeping a lookout for what they're actually putting out there as well, because I don't know. How long has this been going? An hour? So I might just wrap it up there. I mean, I don't have too much else to add overall. Oh yeah, well, I mean, I'll announce the next book, which actually, mentioning like, gorgeous prose, I've heard very good things about Leaving Las Vegas, so if that is the winner, I'll be intrigued to give it a go. I read The Old Man and the Sea, I will do a review for it as well, but you know, I might just make a couple of comments on it right now. Might be one of the most boring fucking novellas ever written, but it's weird actually, because my initial reaction to certain things is like, that sucked. But then sometimes it does stew a little bit. There's certain elements of the novella that I kind of appreciate, at least I kind of respect what Hemingway was going for, but the manner in which he did it and the result he got, I wouldn't piss on if it was on fire, because it's still shit. Like, it's a bit like, yeah, the exercise is interesting, but look at the result. I mean, come on, are we not, like, isn't it somewhat a responsibility to be at least somewhat entertaining? If the only thing that's entertaining is the trivia that it was Hemingway's last piece, and it's like, well, yeah, no wonder it was, because it seems like he wanted to fucking blow his head off. Just look at the prose. It's the most boring, static, monosyllabic. Like, it's so repetitive, and it doesn't really go anywhere. But then that's the point of it. That's the thing. It's like, okay, I can respect the point you're going for, but I can't respect the end result. Like, I just don't. I think it's poor. It doesn't work. In fact, I think it's almost him shitting on literature, because maybe, I don't know, maybe the fame it brought him didn't give him satisfaction, so it's almost like him taking a dump on the whole medium in a sense. And yeah, I'm also reading Fear and Trembling, which I'm enjoying that. That's quite refreshing in a sense, because it's a comical little book about a woman who starts working for a Japanese corporation, and she's from Belgium, and it's kind of pointing out the culture differences, and it's just like an exercise of absurdity basically, where she's there but they're trying to like give her the most monotonous type jobs in existence just to kind of keep her occupied, but even in that she's like making mistakes and they're finding fault, and it's kind of like, I think it's really funny in terms of like the culture differences it kind of brings up, and just, yeah, it's got this very like tongue-in-cheek kind of way of telling its story. I think it's pretty good so far, at least. Well, I mean, the thing is with The Old Man and the Sea, it's just like, I don't want to go into it too much because I'll do that in the review, but it uses a lot of like techniques that I remember seeing in A Clean, Well-Lighted Place, like the odd use of a Spanish word. Just throw it in there, just use a Spanish word, and it just felt like I felt like it was appropriate in A Clean, Well-Lighted Place because of the location it's set in. Whereas in this, okay, the guy's Cuban, but it's like, why would he speak like that? It's like, makes me think, does the Spanish version then just throw in a random English word to like even it out? And I'm just like, what's the point? Why? Why? And the fact that it just has stuff about fucking baseball, it's like, I'm not American. I couldn't give a shit about fucking baseball. Like, I know who DiMaggio is, sure, but it's so boring to me. I'm just like, oh god, they're talking about the baseball again and the New York, yeah, and the dialogue in it's really awkward. I'm not sure what he was trying to achieve with that, but it just made it sound really unnatural and almost childlike in some ways, where he's talking to Manolin, this boy who basically just serves as an exposition dump at the beginning to get to the point of where we're at, and then the guy's just on a boat trying to catch this marlin, and even when he does catch it, he's too fucking weak and old and pathetic, so he has to just wait it out. He has to just, yeah, it's weird little piece, that one. But I kind of think maybe the only reason Hemingway got a lot of accolade that he got was because he just hit the market at a really nice time where people were probably fed up with flary type prose, and when he comes along with his no nonsense uber masculine bullshit, and he kind of makes it seem way more profound than it really is, you know. I don't know, I'd have to read more of his stuff to really get a good estimation as to like why is this guy as like renowned as he is. Is it because he has actually written something, well, actually worth reading? Or is it just dumb luck and propaganda? I swear, the more you like try to think about certain eras and like why something becomes big and all of that, like with Boy Parts is apparently getting a TV series, it's going to be on a theatre and all this, and I'm like, why? Like, it's not that good. It's all right, but it doesn't deserve that. But then again, Wetlands was made into a film, and you think, really? Like, and then it's like maybe it is all just propaganda. Like, marketing is essentially just a form of propaganda. Obviously, it's just to sell books, but it is also in a manner telling you what is good, what's worth reading these days, all that kind of stuff. So in a sense, the main thing I respect about popular female authors these days is the marketing. Basically, it does a very good job at getting it into the eyes of its target audience and convincing them that it's worthy of reading. I mean, I have to wonder as well, it might be because, you know, academic circles these days are so pro-female and anti-male that anything that comes along that has all the buzzwords will immediately get a lot of attention because it fits the zeitgeist, you know. Especially if it's about the female experience. It's an emotional journey and all that kind of stuff. It just fits in with all of that. So it, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? But not just with that. I mean, it's more overall. Like, maybe it was always bullshit, but when you read Poe, you think, fucking hell, this guy can write, you know. Like, I actually honestly think if someone like Virginia Woolf was trying to get published, like, they wouldn't publish it because they wouldn't fucking understand it at all, you know. That's the thing. These books it feels dumbed down, and that isn't a critique on the author or on their intellect or anything. It's like it feels deliberately dumbed down to cater to the audience it's targeting, you know. That's why I'm lacking this kind of like, where's the fucking, make me work a bit more to know what's going on here, move me a bit, like give me some insight that I haven't come across before, use some odd fucking metaphor or unusual simile, you know, that type of thing where you're just like, what? Why is everything so surface level? Like, it doesn't need to keep just telling me what it is all the time. This is fucking literature. It's supposed to do something a bit different, be a bit more like playful with the language, be a bit more cheeky or mischievous or whatever, manipulative even. Doesn't feel like it's doing that. It feels like it's just being very placating and just gilding the lily of my own unamused intellect, in a sense of like, it just feels like if TV shows are making programs because they're aware that people are just scrolling their phones, so it's basically just background noise. A lot of these novels just feel a little bit background noise, even though you have to still be active reading it. doesn't feel like it's properly, it's not like I'm thinking about it when I put it down and then, or even unable to, you know, put it away for a long time. You know, because what the best thing about a really great book is that you can't stop fucking reading it or thinking about it when you're not reading it, you know. I mean, that's a rare experience, but Lucky Purr. Enrique Pontopiddan. What a name that is. I mean, it doesn't initially sound like it would grab me, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm not, you know, giving an attack on the necessarily intellect or educational level of what we've been reading of late. But it does still feel like it's basic, if you know what I mean. Like if there was a target reading age, I kind of feel like it is written for late teens, like a lot of the time. Like it just, and that's a bit odd when your protagonist is pushing 30. But whatever. Oh, he won a Nobel Prize, did he? Oh wow. Might get. Well, let me know what you think of it at the end. Oh. Right, yeah, well, I'll check the book club to see if there's been. I mean, I doubt there's been any more votes. Let's have a look. Yep, it is Leaving Las Vegas by John O'Brien. I'm looking forward to this one, I have to admit. I will be reviewing Fear and Trembling as well after The Old Man and the Sea. So if you're intrigued to hear about that, that'll probably be a relatively quick one. And this, The City of the Dogs, I actually think we might want to read that as well. It just apparently is like a bit like a Lord of the Flies, but with older men. Apparently, it's fucking violent. So, and apparently, he is a very good writer as well. So, yeah, I think he was also published by Faber and Faber, who was the publisher who took Boy Parts. So, but I don't know whether they just originally published him and rather than taking it from another indie pub. But yeah, I'll whip up another list tomorrow. Well, read Fear and Trembling. I'm reading it anyway, and then maybe I'll do a double header next time. The main thing will be Leaving Las Vegas, but I'll give some thoughts on, because it's a short novella, and I don't think I'll be saying too much about like the intricacies of the plot and whatnot. I think it's just a good, somewhat tongue-in-cheek black comedy satire type thing, which has some interesting observations, and it's got some nice writing, I think, at times. I quite like her style. It's inventive in moments, and she seems like quite an interesting character in her own right. And I already read some review on Goodreads bashing it because of how like it's being racially insensitive and all this kind of stuff. But it's kind of like, there's a reason stereotypes exist, and there are culture differences that other cultures can comment on. It's just absurd, you know. I'm a little surprised you're not enthusiastic to read Leaving Las Vegas. I've heard it's actually a beautiful read, so bear that in mind, you know. And the dude, I mean, like Hemingway, couple of weeks, I mean, I think he did a Sylvia Plath actually, I mean, not a head in the oven, but I think a couple of weeks after he sold the film rights or something, he blew his head off. So it was like, I mean, that's a way to go out, you know. Doesn't mean the book's any good though, mind you, but I've got a good feeling about it anyway. Let me check how long it is so I can get a good idea. On how long I should leave it. Okay, it's 189 pages. That's pretty short. I reckon I could do another one next week because I'm already nearly finished with Fear and Trembling. So yeah, I'll probably make it a week because apparently when I give you more time to read it, less people turn up to actually watch the show. So I'm confused. I never actually got too much into drinking and reading. I can do it on occasion, but I find, I don't know, if it's one glass of wine or one beer, maybe two, it can be nice. I used to like going to pubs to actually do it over a pint or two, but there would always be a moment where I could kind of feel the drink kind of taking more. It's like that's what it wants, more attention. It's like, that's enough of this fucking reading bollocks. You can do this when you're hungover. Just get another pint or go and buy a bottle of wine and watch some bullshit show or whatever. Has anyone, I mean, I know you watched it, Patrick, but has anyone seen Bring Her Back here? That's a movie. I actually thought, what I thought was impressive about it is the fact that you still felt for the woman in it, even though she was a complete and utter psychotic loon. You know, I still, at the end, you still feel for her a bit, and I thought that's an accomplishment considering what she does. Yeah, an awkward watch. It's very relentless, almost to the point where it's like, is this just like what's happening now with like a TikTok generation where there's just, you're bombarded with different stimuli quite a lot? But I actually felt it did do it in quite a good way because it keeps you on your toes pretty much throughout the entire run. Yeah, very, and there were a few surprises here and there when I thought it was going one way and then it's like suddenly like nah, and then just sucker punched you with something else. But yeah, it's very aggressive film in a lot of ways. Well, the problem is now I don't do it because when it's £6 a fucking pint, you kind of start working out like this book is costing me about fucking £100 to get through if I do this every night or every other night even. It's not. That's what I mean. I don't even go out to coffee shops now because it's like I feel like I'm just getting my pants pulled down all the time. Like £4 fucking for a fucking cup of coffee, which I know the percentages they're getting on it is insane. So it's just like, I mean, really, the fucking world is just being turned into hermits just through, you know, the lack of affordability of anything. it costs too much money to do stuff, like on an average basis, you know. Sorry, it's getting a bit blurry without the light. But yeah, I mean, it's maybe I shouldn't be thinking about the cost of these things when I'm just reading a book, but it does kind of like go into your head of like, I could just do this at home and it would cost me a lot less, and I can sit around, you know, shirtless, smoking actual cigarettes instead of a shitty vape, and not feel like I'm being massively overcharged for what is, you know, standard day-to-day bullshit, you know. Anyway, I think that's it for tonight. I've already gone on for a while. Yeah. I'll see you in a week, I guess. Look out for more reviews at some point. I will also try to keep up the movie reviews. I'm just trying to be a bit more, I guess, selective with which one. I actually think I had the best results when I was doing kind of unusual indie type films, so I'll probably just focus a bit more on that. But it's not easy finding the good ones. And yeah, I'd like to make some other types of vids. So I mean, if you have anything that you're intrigued by, like whether even if it's like writing tips or maybe more top 10 kind of stuff about maybe even transgressive fiction or dark fiction, disturbing, whatever, yeah, those types of things. I think maybe even just like I could do that with movies as well, you know, because there's been a few here and there which I've been tempted to do a review for, but then kind of thought, well, I don't have that much to say about it. But yeah, maybe some actual fucking good cinema, you know, like I'm moaning about the standard of literature these days, but it's the same with movies a lot of the time. It's just yeah, top 10 transgressive books. Yeah, I could do that. I mean, it's an interesting one because I actually think the definition behind it is a little bit, it's a bit difficult to ascertain these days, because I could argue that boy parts and wetlands, yeah, they're transgressive, but I wouldn't put it in the label of transgressive fiction in the same way that I would something like American Psycho or Fight Club. Like, to me, that fits the mold a lot more. The transgressive elements of boy parts or wetlands is mostly to do with, well, bodily fluids, or maybe boy parts has it a little bit more, but not enough, I don't think. It's like a kind of a kiddie version of it, you know. Dice Man, that would be in there. But then, yeah, I remember seeing like Dostoevsky getting labelled as transgressive fiction. I think, well, it's a bit of a stretch. Same with Lolita. It's like, yeah, of course, by definition, it's somewhat transgressive, but in terms of literary merit, it goes beyond, well, fucking literature itself in some ways, but yeah, well, cheers for watching, those of you who did. Thank you to well, none of you who read it, I don't think, but you know, I guess the benefit of doing it live is that other people can kind of chime in if they want, if they dare. I mean, it's funny, I'm surprised I don't get much kickback, you know, from some of the takes I have. It's almost as if the people out there don't really think it's as good as the collective tells them it is. But yeah, we'll see. If this ever grows, I'm sure I'll get plenty of criticism back as to what I'm saying about these books. But yeah, well, cheers for watching, those of you who did. You're all going anyway, so let's just fucking get this over with already. I'll see you next week. Cheers.